of the Old Testament. And today we're up to miracle 41. And miracle 41 is the miracle of Jonah. So my name is Emmanuel, as many now know, or as Liz and my wife has said. And I was baptized here in the Sydney church in 2016. I was in the West region. My wife was baptized in 2017 in the West region too. We then both went into the full-time ministry in the second half of 2019. We then got married in December 21st, 2019 as well. And the last 7 months we've been in Apia, Samoa. So we say, Malo, Talofa. It is incredible to be able to be with all of you. But firstly, guys, the church in Samoa is deeply grateful for every single one of you. They do want to say their thanks to you guys, to the Austria-China West sector, to especially Joe and Kerry. The church would not be what it is today without each and every single one of you. All of you have literally put a smile on their faces. Because of you, many of the things that we find enjoyment in Samoa is made possible. We literally have a van. Let me give you a bit of an indication why we have a van. Buses do not run in Samoa on weekdays after 5:30 p.m. Walk home at your own peril. That's all it is. On Saturdays, buses stop running at 12:30, and on Sundays, buses do not run. In the notes that you have, I've included some pictures to sort of help you get an indication, but that is the van right there with the logo, Mercy Community Center Samoa, and there is Tana, who is the Mercy Coordinator for Apia Samoa. We also have a farm, which our very own Tula also works as a community center. There you can see a photo of him looking at the tomatoes like, I'm in love with you. It tastes so beautiful. What is the purpose of the farm? I thank you so much, Joe, for doing a drive in December. The farm is to feed the troubled youth in Samoa and also the disciples. Like Joe said, many disciples will eat once a day, and that's life. They're happy with that. But I just want to thank you so much for all of you for every single thing you've done. The farm is possible today because of you. The center stands, yes, because of God, for sure, but without Joe and Kerry, it would not be possible. And they want to say that thank you. We thank you for sending Sean Tegan and Eli as well. Eli is a Samoan baby, eating rocks, walking on rocks, everything. But I'm also in the photo, you see the farm. So there was already a greenhouse in the farm. But what was amazing is, I'm just so grateful for the movement. 2 more greenhouses are being built. My photo is kind of old now because it's probably nearly built or nearly in its completion, which is great. Then there's a community center that we have for the troubled youth. There is Tula keeping them all entertained in the photo with the different girls as well. There's the table tennis. Table tennis is a proper thing in Samoa. We have fun having competitions. You bring your study is playing table tennis. You bring your friends, they're playing table tennis. But we thank you guys for making all that a reality. There's so many more things that you guys have been able to make a reality in Samoa. There's a lawnmower to mow the grass because of you. There's an esky, board games for the community center, rubbish bins were bought, multiple fans for the households, cutting boards, kitchen sets, kettle, multiple mattresses. Many were sleeping on the floor. They were now sleeping on mattresses, wardrobes, toaster, electric frying pans, rice cooker, microwave, laundry basket, dining table, a couch. All of this was made possible by all of you in the last 7 months. And for that, we want to say thank you. Thank you so deeply much for loving your brothers and sisters. It is truly the definition of love one another. But in going into today's lesson, today we're going to be looking at the miracle of the preservation of Jonah in the belly of the fish for 3 days. So who was Jonah? Jonah was a prophet of God, whom God called to go and preach to the great city of Nineveh. In Jonah chapter 1, 1-3, it says, the word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai, go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah ran from the Lord. Have you ever done that? just run? Sure. But Jonah ran from the Lord and headed for Tarshish. He went to Joppa, where he found a ship boarding for the port. After paying the fare, he went on board and sailed for Tarshish to flee from the Lord. See, many are called, but few obey. Nineveh was the capital city of Assyria. If you know the Old Testament, the Assyrians were the enemy of the Israelites. And in essence, Jonah did not want to go and preach to his enemies because he understood that God would forgive them. But he didn't want that. See, there's never a mention of Jonah responding to God or asking God questions to seek to understand the mission given to him. He just simply ran. This very much right here, I go, I understand. Before my wife and I got the privilege to go to Samoa, we lived with Joe and Carrie for 6 months. We were living in their house. It was a great training opportunity to get us ready for the mission field. And let me just say it, I ran. I ran because I didn't want the training that was being given to me. I did it. Because I wanted it, but I wanted it in a very different way to what was being given to me. And I remember the epitome of it. It was in the West. There was a household for the Christians, which the Christians boys all lived together. And by my own negligence and lack of leadership, the household was lost. And for 7 months it was lost. There was no household. But you know when you know you're wrong, but you don't want to accept you're wrong? I remember one time Joe was sitting me down in his office and he was trying to talk to me to help me understand the impact of my negligence. I remember Joe talking and I remember just looking at him like, you don't understand, bro. If you were in my situation, you couldn't have made it happen. And I remember that just going through my mind and my heart and go, not this one, Joe. Maybe another thing, but not this one. And I remember running. But God has a funny sense of humor. Whatever you run from, he will give you the same test again and again until you pass it. Effie and I landed in Samoa in April. The very first thing that we had to do was find a brother's household. I'm like, God, leave me alone. I had enough. That was the very first thing. And I remember sitting there like, why is this happening to me again? God goes, because you didn't pass the test. But to God's glory, a household was found not long after. Like Jonah, are you running from God today? So running from God is like trying to play hide and seek. But God always knows where you're at. What are you running from today? You're running from the call of leadership, the call to fill in the gaps that will be left by many who are valiantly going on the mission field, the call to become more, to go from one level of leadership to another, the call to let go of whatever is holding you back and get baptized today, the call to get dating or find a spouse. So know where you're wrong, we're better than the arms of God. Jonah ran to a ship. So he found that to be better than running to the arms of God. We understand the prodigal son also ran to the pigs, but yet he'll return to God. But what was incredible was when Jonah was in the ship, there came a storm. Jonah chapter 1, 4-5. Then the Lord sent a great wind on the sea, and such a violent storm rose that the ship threatened to break up. All the sailors were afraid, and each cried out to his own God, and they threw the cargo into the sea to lighten the ship. But Jonah had gone below deck, where he lay down and fell into deep sleep. There was a storm. God will always put storms in your life. See, at the end of the day, Jonah's issue was his heart was never set. His heart was never set to learn from God and to understand the heart of God. And he was not humble. Again, many lessons will come to your life when God tried to teach you this. But point one, guys, learn while you can. So learn so to save those around you. We'll pick up in Jonah chapter 1, 6-10. It says, the captain went to him and said, how can you sleep? Get up and call on the God. Maybe he will take notice of us so that we will not perish. The sailors said to each other, come, let us cast lots to find out who is responsible for this calamity. They cast lots and the lot fell on Jonah. So they asked him, tell us, who is responsible for making all this trouble for us? What kind of work do you do? Where do you come from? What is your country? From what people are you? He answered, I am a Hebrew and I worship the Lord and the God of heaven who made the sea and the dry land. This terrified them and they asked, what have you done? They knew he was running away from the Lord because he had already told them so. So because of Jonah's decision to run from God, God's calling found him in a storm along with others in the ship. I'm sure when Jonah decided to run away, he didn't think that his decision was going to impact other people in the way it does. You know what's interesting about humans? Have you ever realized every time we make a selfish decision and we face the consequences of it when a mature world is go, I didn't think it was going to affect that person that way. I didn't think it was going to have that impact on that person. It's like holding out from getting baptized. Yes, it is your salvation, but each day you hold out from being baptized is a day you lose of being able to save another person. 1 Timothy chapter 4:16, it says, watch your life and doctrine closely. Persevere in them, because if you do, you will save both yourself and your hearers. Being in Samoa was amazing because we saw many examples of God saving people so they can save others. So one of the converts in Samoa was a girl called Renee. We love Renee. Renee's literally a high school kid. She's like the Venus. She's high school. She's in her last year of high school. She's just done her major exams, and she'll be going on to university next year. But how Renee got baptized was really just simply God. So there's a place called the waterfront. The waterfront is basically like a seawall that looks out into the ocean, and you can pray to God. We had a sister called Aisha. Aisha was sitting in the waterfront, and the Samoans every morning will get up around 4 a.m., we'll get on the bus, and they're there by 5:30 or 6 a.m., and they are simply just praying to God. So Aisha was at the waterfront praying to God as per usual. Renee now sees Aisha. She goes, I recognize who this girl is. I think I went to the same high school as her. Later that day, she messages Aisha. She goes, hey, is that you? And she goes, yeah, it was me. What were you doing there? She goes, well, I was praying in the morning to God as per usual. Renee goes, really? Aisha goes, yeah. He goes, you know what, Aisha? I have been looking for a church to get baptized in. I did not want to get baptized in my own church, my Seventh-day Adventist church, because I don't believe they're teaching the truth. Can you study the Bible with me? What was amazing was Renee started studying the Bible. And one of the costs she had to count was breaking up with her boyfriend at the time because they were in an impure relationship. So she goes, I'm going to make the decision to break up with my boyfriend. So she goes to school, and after school, she goes to break up with her boyfriend. Her boyfriend's name is Joseph. So she breaks up with Joseph, and after breaking up with Joseph, looks him in the eyes and goes, and you need to come to church tonight as well. And tonight was midweek. I'm like, you just broke up with him, give him a day or two to recover. Joseph comes to church on Wednesday. Renee keeps studying the Bible, gets baptized. Well, the interesting thing, I remember walking into church on Wednesday, and I see a guy sitting in the corner. I'm like, he doesn't look happy, but who is he? Then I go to Effie, go, who is that? He goes, oh, that's Joseph. I was like, oh, now I understand. So we started talking to Joseph. Hey, bro, I'm so sorry about what happened. We don't mean, but do you want to study the Bible? Joseph goes, sure, I studied the Bible. So we started studying the Bible with Joseph. We go, you got to do it for God, not for Renee. God might have used Renee to bring you to the church, but you've got to do it for God. The Bible studies were going great. We're studying. Persecution kicks in. Persecution in Samoa is like drinking water. It is very much normal. You live and you breathe with it. The first persecution started with his grandparents that goes, why are you going to that church? Just study the Bible with them, but don't get baptized in that church. Joseph goes, no, I'm going to get baptized in the church. He still comes to church. He goes home after church. His mom and his grandmother goes, do not go to that church ever again. If I see you at that church, I'm going to tell your dad. Joseph goes, no, I'm coming to church. He still comes to church. He comes to church, he goes home, and now he has to confront his father. His father goes, why are you going to that church? I told you not to do it. Starts to beat him up. His dad grabs the coffee table, swings the coffee table at him, but a little martial art helps. Joseph blocks it with his hand. Still comes to church. He comes to church, we look at him like, you're doing okay? He's like, beating up for Christ, that's okay, we keep going. He goes home that night. His dad goes, you went to church again? Beats him up some more. Starts beating him up. The family sits around, the family gathers, and they're just persecuting him. And for a moment, his faith got really weak. We normally meet him every day after school, but we didn't see him the next day, Monday. We drive around from one location to another location looking for him at his school. Couldn't find him. 2 days goes, can't find him. 3 days goes, can't find him. Saturday arrives. We're messaging him on Facebook, trying to get in contact with him. We couldn't. But he messages us back. He goes, hey, sorry I've been missing, but can we meet up? I want to talk. We'll meet up with him. You know when someone meets with you and they want to do the famous breakup conversation? He sits down with us. He's like, I'm thankful to you guys so much for all that you've done for me. You guys are really my friends. I go, thank you, Joseph. I'm thankful for you too. But what do you want? He goes, I want to be a disciple. Then I go, be a disciple then. He goes, but my family. He's like, you stood up to your family. Now it's time for us to support you. That very night, we get in the car. We drive over to his family. His granddad, as scary as he is there. His grandmother is there. His mom is on the inside. I'm with my sidekick, Juju, who's arriving on Monday. You got to take Juju with you. Prepared in season, out of season. We go into the house. And his grandparents goes, what are you doing here? Oh, like, we came with Joseph. He wants to talk to you guys about something. Get out of my house. I'm like, I will after Joseph talks to you. Go, Joseph, get out the house. Joseph goes, I want to talk to you guys. I really want to be baptized. Get out the house. Granddad is getting really angry. Joseph stands up. He looks at his grandparents. He walks into the house. He walks back out with his whole entire luggage. He looks at his parents, and his parents are shouting, get out, get out, get out. So me and Juju, we get up. Time to go. As I'm walking out, all I see is a hand go like this to me, and another one like this to me, and it's the granddad. Got me on a choke. I was like, what do you do? I'm like, why are you choking Juju? His neck is big, why me? Puts his neck, I'm like, what do I do? Spread my arms out. Get out of my house. I'm like, you can let go of my neck so I can go. We start walking out. He grabs a rock. Juju looks at him. Juju turns around. Juju goes to me, bro, we might die. I go, keep walking. And we all walk out. But as we walk out, the whole entire village has heard the ruckus and the noise. And it was, man, you got to be proud of Samoans when they become disciples. Could you imagine your whole town just out, watching, listening to what's happening, and everyone knows you? I remember walking out that way. You know, Joseph will go on to then get baptized. But you know what was amazing? If Renee never took the challenge to get baptized, to face what was difficult and break up with Joseph, she never would have been saved, nor would have Joseph as well. No, it's amazing. It goes on. There's another guy called Job that got baptized. We love Job. It means, his name in Salmo means Yopu. Yopu is the translation for Job. This guy had actually studied the Bible. He studied the Bible with Scotty before, studied the Bible with Jack as well. Jack was there before, studied the Bible with Juju, but didn't make it. The very first Sunday we arrived in Samoa, he was at church. And he was at church because the night before, him and his dad had gotten in a bit of a fist fight. So he calls the disciples and goes, hey, can I please come and sleep over your house? So he sleeps over the house, comes to church the next day. We start studying the Bible. And we go, Yopu, you know, you gotta break up with your girlfriend. It's an impure, adulterous relationship. He's like, I know. And that was always the one challenge that he found difficult to give up. The next day, calls the girl, breaks off the relationship. We're like, wow, you're ready. He studies the Bible. I remember the day he got baptized. It was such a glorious day. But his story really began after he got baptized. See, now he wanted to convert his family. He had a brother. His brother's name is called Tafao. Tafao is an avid Mormon. Has grown up Mormon on his life. Gone on missionary trips to Australia as a Mormon. And he's inviting his brothers to church. His dad goes, you trying to convert your brother? He goes, yeah. He goes, good luck. He's never going to be converted to your church. He's a Mormon. He's been that way all his life. Yopu keeps inviting his brother. His brother says, no, 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 no. But one day, he decided to come to the Bible talk. He comes, and remember him being there. We're like, bro, your brother is there. He's like, I know, bro, just keep calm. We asked him if he wants to study the Bible. He goes, no, I don't want to study the Bible. But I come to Bible talk again. Comes the second time, do you want to study the Bible? He goes, no, but I come to Bible talk again. Third time we go to him, do you want to study the Bible? He goes, surely yes, I want to study the Bible. He studies the Bible, literally then goes back to all his Mormon friends, telling them that he's moving churches. He goes to tell them when they had normally a basketball game during the night. He tells all his Mormon friends right then and then to say, get out. We are no longer friends. They disfellowship him just like that. I asked him, what did you do? He's like, bro, I ran to church. And that was it. He gets baptized. Now, Tafari is actually our cyber guy. He's the guy that is building the website, changing the website. But what's amazing is you've seen Job just grow. Job has literally become one of the fastest growing brothers in the church. In just 7 months of being a disciple, he co-leads a household. He leads a Bible talk. He's discipling people. He's in the Young Prophets, which is a leadership group to train young people. And he's only been a disciple for 7 months while holding a full-time job. So when you look at this story by Jonah, the sailors, after praying to the false gods, noticed their efforts were in vain. They cast lots to see who was responsible, and surely Jonah was responsible. Life is all about learning. If Jonah had learned from his mistakes of the past prophets that tried to run from God, perhaps he wouldn't have ran from God. See, everything you choose to not learn will come back to haunt you. While knowledge is power, lack of willingness to learn is simply wicked. I think it's been amazing seeing Tanner be the mercy coordinator for Samoa. Tanner had to humble himself to learning when it seemed most difficult. I'm really just proud of Joe. When Joe came, he really set the example of what it means to lead a church. Him and Kerry, the very first week I was there, he contacted all the fallaways and goes, guys, I'm in Samoa, let's meet. We're in different meetings that day. And Tanner came for the time that we had a meeting. But Joe was still in the meeting, and I was driving someone home. Tanner sits, decides it's time for him to go. But as he turns around to walk, he sees my wife. My wife looks at him and goes, you're Tanner. He goes, yes, I'm Tanner. He goes, where are you going? Well, it seems like Joe and Manny are busy. I think it was wrong for me to come. My wife goes, it is very much right for you to come. Come, let's sit down and have a drink. If you know my wife, she is very determined. She sits down with Tanner. They start having a drink. She waits for us. We come. She goes, and there is Manny and Joe. We start talking to Tanner. I was like, buddy, you got to come back. You know what the truth is? Like, yeah, I know the truth, but there's one problem. He goes, I got married after I fell away. And my wife wants nothing, absolutely nothing to do with the church. We're like, bro, what if God used this situation as a way to bring her into the kingdom? He goes, you don't understand my wife, bro. You don't understand. She wants nothing to do with God. We're like, why don't you just talk to her? Come to church the next day, and why don't you talk to her? The next day he comes to church. I remember him being at that church service. Joe was preaching fire. No smile, angry. I was like, that's the coming of Jesse Cross II. I remember him looking so sad. Church finishes. He heads out the door. And as he's heading out the door, he sees another person. It's called my wife. My wife goes, where are you going? We still have leaders meeting? He goes, well, I'm not a leader. I just came for the service. I'm going. My wife goes, surely you're a leader. Come inside for leaders meeting. Tanner comes inside for leaders meeting. He stays. And it was amazing because that sermon during leaders, he just changed. The next day he goes and talks to his wife. His wife goes, if this is the church that made you the man that I fell in love with, then I support you. Go ahead. Blew Tanner's mind when his wife got baptized. Because he was shocked. He's like, bro, I never thought it would happen. Yeah, but what is impossible with man is possible with God. You're going to learn, sir, to save yourself. Jonah 1:11-16 goes, the sea was getting rougher and rougher. So they asked him, what should we do to make the sea calm down for us? Pick me up and throw me into the sea, he replied, and it will become calm. I know that is my fault, and this great storm has come upon you. Instead, the man did their best to row back to land. But they could not, for the sea grew wide, even wider than before. Then they cried out to the Lord, please, Lord, do not let us die for taking this man's life. Do not hold us accountable for killing an innocent man. For you, Lord, have done as you please. The man took Jonah and threw him overboard, and the raging sea grew calm. At this, the man greatly feared the Lord, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows to him. See, as the sea grew rougher, the sailors quickly ran out of options. Jonah now volunteers for him to be thrown into the sea, and surely it will be calm. Jonah even goes further to say, I know it's my fault that what is happening is happening. You know, one of the most difficult words to stomach is extreme ownership. Do you believe where you're at today is a direct result of the choices and decisions you have made? Or do you blame others? Do you feel like taking hold of every problem in your household, Bible talk, your region, as being your personal responsibility? See, even deeper than that these problems are a result of what you have done or not done. Apostle Paul understood this. That's why he writes in 2 Corinthians 11:28-29. Besides everything else, I face daily the pressures of my concern for all the churches. Who is weak, and I do not feel weak. Who is led into sin, and I do not inwardly burn. For me, this word extreme ownership was not an easy word. It's amazing when God sends you to a country. He sends you to learn. And one of the deepest things that God sent me to learn was extreme ownership. I remember it so vividly when God put the test out. It was when the Mercy Community Center was about to start. We wanted a signage to be put up so that all of Samoa could see the community center when they drive by. You know, Joe, Carrie, my wife, Effie, Tana, Nick, and Denise in America, who are the coordinators for Mercy Worldwide, as you can see. We drew mocks. We came up with the prints. We came up with everything. We're like, finally, we are happy with what we want the signage to look like. Great. Me and Tana go to the signage people. We'll give them the signage and go, hey, make us this and put it on the wall. They go, surely not a problem at all. We will do exactly what you want. This was a week left before the grand opening. We're like, great. A day goes past, 2 days goes past. 2 days left before the opening. We're like, where is the sign, guys? We need the sign. There's 2 more days. They go, surely we're going to put it up today. They put up the sign. And this became really interesting really quick. The sign was up. I looked at the sign. I go, I don't think that's the mock we gave you. My wife is next to me. She goes, Manny, this is not good. This is not the mock we gave. I take a photo. I send it to Joe and Carrie. Joe goes, Manny, this is not the mock we gave. And I look at him like, surely it's not that bad. My wife is trying to tell me, Manny, it's not excellent. I'm going, but you don't understand, love. It's not that bad. And I remember in that moment, I'm like, it's not that bad because I got 2 days before the grand opening. How on earth is this going to turn around in 2 months? So let me convince myself it's not that bad. I didn't want to take extreme ownership. I remember being on the phone call with Joe. Joe was like, Manny, you got to figure this out. I'm like, it's 2 days, Joe. If you look at the notes I gave you, the first sign was there. That's the first sign. Mercy Community Center, Samoa. All squished up. I'm like, it's not that bad, right? With a gaping gap in the middle between the 2 signs. It's not that bad. We had to go back to the signage people. Like, hey, guys, this is not what we want. They're like, yeah, we know, but we try to make it work. I'm like, but it ain't working right now. They're like, okay, we can fix it for you. We're like, yeah, but it's 2 days before the grand opening. They're like, don't worry. Literally the next day, the guys stay up all night till 4 a.m. in the morning, the very day that the grand opening was. And they totally redid the whole sign. We were at the community center sleeping on the floor waiting for them to come. 2 a.m. is past. They're not here at 3. It was 4 a.m. And they finally put up the sign. And the sign is as what you're not seeing the next picture down. You know when something goes right and you're convicted because you thought it wasn't going to go right? That was that situation. I'm like, I don't even want to send this photo to Joe. He's going to tell me, you see, what did you learn? I'm like, I know what I learned already. But he taught me extreme ownership. Everything is my fault, whether I like it or not. And it was amazing because then we had the grand opening, as you can see in the photos, the kids and everyone was there, and it was just a memorable day. Imagine if we used the first time. Imagine that. Imagine that photo. You're looking at that photo, always going, man, it's not that bad, right? It is that bad. But what's amazing is look at the Samoans when they get converted. They understand the concept of extreme ownership. Because when you are facing your dad and he's literally going to beat you up, you better have extreme ownership if you want to be saved. It reminds me of one guy that got converted, PJ, or Punamu. He was a friend of a disciple already, Francis. So Francis was bringing his friend around and he wanted to convert his friend. Punamu studies the Bible, goes, I'm definitely going to make this decision. We're like, good. You better let your parents know. You better go talk to your parents. So he goes to talk to his parents. They're not budging. He goes, if you come with me, Manny and Francis, surely they will be able to let me get baptized. I was like, man, being choked is not, come on, man. I've been choked once. We go to his house. That's what you do, right? And this one was interested. So we're sitting on the floor. We're talking to his parents. His dad is just getting angry, losing his mind. And as he's talking, there is this massive tall guy, taller than Jesse, big like this, walks in through the door. I look at the floor next to my car key. I put a hold on it. I look at Francis and I look at Punamu and I'm looking at them like, we better come up with an escape plan right now. I'm looking at the door. I'm like, if I try to get into my car too late, he might punch through the window. We have to run by foot. Guy walks in, walks around like this. He's trying to intimidate us. And the parents turn to Francis, who was a disciple. They're having a go at him. This is your fault. If you never were friends with my son, if you never studied the Bible with him, this and this will not happen to him. Francis looks at the parents and goes, it's not my fault. It's the Bible's fault. He goes, it's not my fault. The Bible says he has to do it. It's not me. And we remember the moment when Punamu had extreme ownership. He motions to Francis. He's like, shh, my turn to talk. He looks at his dad. He goes, this is my decision. Our church doesn't teach the truth. It doesn't teach how to be a disciple. I'm doing this whether you like it or not. I'm like, you better get ready to run too. It was so amazing. Punamu stands up. The very day that it was his baptism, his own parents were the people that drove him to church for his baptism. I remember him getting baptized, and it was so amazing. I think about extreme ownership. I think about how Juju has taken extreme ownership for saving his parents. Juju got his foot into someone and was like, I got to convert my family. But it was interesting what Juju understood. He goes, to convert my family is simply going to be a matter of me choosing to watch my life and my doctrine closely. His parents started studying the Bible. It was amazing. Effie and I were studying the Bible with his mom before we left, and we're doing she's from a Mormon background, Advent Mormon, like her grandparents. She is like multiple generations down of Mormon. We grabbed the actual Bible, we grabbed the Mormon Bible, and we are comparing scriptures, and she's just like, she was shocked at how different the Mormon Bible was to the actual Bible. The study's finished. She goes, thank you so very much. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to show me the truth. His dad was then studying his dad, and Sean went evangelizing the meta person. Sean and his dad were studying the Bible with the person. And because it was in Samoa, and so Juju's dad was now doing the translation to the guy, preaching the word to him. I'm like, man, Juju, I'm so proud of your family. And I'm proud of my wife. There's so many stories happening on Women's Day. There was no budget for Women's Day. We needed to have Women's Day, but there was no money. But the Lord always provides. I remember my wife looking at me going, Manny, we have to have a Women's Day. I'm like, yes, we do. But there's no money. She goes, the Lord will provide. I remember her going to the venue that she wanted to use for the Women's Day. Beautiful venue. Initially, it was going to cost her $2,500. She goes to them, sorry, I can't afford that. I need you to reduce the price for me. They go, surely, no problem. How about we'll give it to you for $1,200? She goes, that sounds more like it. Thank you very much. She writes letters, handing out sponsorship letters to many people. I'm having a Women's Day, sponsor me. I'm having a Women's Day, sponsor me. One of the major banks in Samoa, that's like a Commonwealth banker in ANZ, gives her a donation of 500 tala. The Prime Minister's office gives her a donation of 500 tala. And like that, the Women's Day became free, no charge. I go, extreme ownership and no expenses made. So in the end, the man threw Jonah overboard. Surely they thought that he had killed Jonah. Surely Jonah himself thought he was about to die. Everything you choose not to learn will come back, will become the very things that will stunt your salvation from you. Point 2, and coming to an end. The mission should bring submission and thus liberation. The mission should bring submission and thus liberation. Humility always wins. Jonah chapter 2, he says from inside the fish, Jonah prayed to the Lord his God. He said, I am in distress. And I called to the Lord, and he answered me. From deep in the realm of the dead, I called for help, and you listened to my cry. You heard me into the depths, into the very heart of the seas, and the currents swirled around me. All your waves and breaks swept over me. I said, I have been banished from your sight, yet I will look again towards your holy temple. The engulfing waters threatened me. The deep surrounded me. Seaweed was wrapped around my head. To the roots of the mountains I sank down. The earth beneath buried me forever. But you, Lord my God, brought my life up from the pit. When my life was embedded away, I remembered you. Lord, and my praise rose to you, to your holy temple. Those who cling to worthless idols turn away from God's love for them. But I will shout for grateful praise, will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed, I will make good. I will say salvation comes from the Lord. And the Lord commanded the fish, and it vomited Jonah onto dry land. See, from inside the fish, Jonah prayed. While on the ship facing great storm, Jonah did not pray. He was actually in deep sleep. But yet only when he found himself in the belly of the fish did he not pray. Now, what does the belly of the fish represent? It represents coming to a realization. It represents coming to your senses. The coming to Jesus moment. Out of distress, Jonah called out to God. Your current distress is not for you to become inward, but it's from God so you can call out to him. From being in the belly of the fish, Jonah finally humbled himself. So with a combination of the darkest depth of the sea, the furious waves, the seaweed wrapped around him, the sense of lostness, Jonah was brought back to his senses. Being in Samoa was that for me. It was the belly of the fish moment. You don't understand how scary it is to look around your church and to go, they are going to become what I am or what I'm not. That is one of the scariest things you would ever hear in life. Every one of us has a mission. And that mission is called to seek and save the lost. Jonah had a mission. And it's simply understanding that you've got to not miss your call from God. When God called Jonah, he ran. But it took him being in the belly of the fish for him to come back to his senses. Don't let it get to the belly of the fish moment for you to come to your senses. You got to ask yourself, would you rather be in the belly of the fish or would you rather be on dry ground? And guys, in conclusion, set your heart. Point 1, learn why you can. Jonah didn't learn why he could. And because of that, he was thrown overboard and was in the belly of the fish. Point 2, the mission should bring submission and thus liberation. No matter what it takes, set your heart to learn and be humble. So your life does not end up like Jonah's, who at the end of the day was still very angry. And in closing out in Jonah chapter 4, 1-3, Jonah had gone to Nineveh, preached, and there was great repentance. But yet Jonah said, this seemed very wrong, and he became angry. He prayed to the Lord, isn't this what I said, Lord, when I was still at home? That this is what I tried to foretell by fleeing to Tarshish. I knew that you're a gracious and compassionate God, slow to anger and abounding in love, a God who relents from sending calamity. Now, Lord, take away my life, for it is better for me to die than to live. And that is the sermon for today. Amen.